Hey, we're back. We're going to be sticking with another value type stock. And right now we're going to focus on Exxon. So just to get a little recap of where we left off with them was on February 25th. At that point, they were currently trading at 110. I marked out a buy point of 98 and then a sell slash resistance mark at 122. And so right now you can see they're at 115. So let's go into a little bit of the news of what they've been up to for the past month, and then we'll get to the technical analysis. So the first thing is they're seeking to unblock a stalled sale in challenging Nigeria. So basically, what this goes into is Exxon at one point purchased land in Nigeria, and right now they're trying to sell a portion of that. Uh, they label it as shallow water oil production, and then there's also deep water oil production, which I'm looking for that key word. But yeah, so basically, what they want to do is they want to try to sell their $1.2 billion stake in the shallow water asset, and they have a buyer. It's a Nigerian firm, and the government is trying to stop that. I'm not sure why. I think it's because with oil becoming so prevalent, and I guess Nigeria is not as productive as they once were with oil, and so they don't want to miss out on money by Exxon selling out. And I think it's also important to recognize again that Exxon would be selling their shallow water property to a Nigeria energy company. And I don't know what the problem would be with that, but for whatever reason, Nigeria does. And you can see here, so Malin, which is like Exxon's one of their top advisors, they're saying that they're not leaving. They want to keep the deep water Nigeria aspect. It's just the shallow water. I guess it's not. They're saying it's not as profitable, and there's other type of investments that they could make, and so they just want to sell this shallow water part to this Nigeria's Seplat Energy. So we'll kind of see if that actually does take place. I imagine it will, but we'll see how it works. Rules in Africa are not the same as here in America, so we'll see how it plays out. Something else that came up, apparently there was like a racial issue here where there was several nooses found at a Louisiana plant, which of course that's like I guess a slavery type thing. Not sure what the implications are for this one, but that was just something surprising to see in the news. So, not sure if there's going to be some legal battle that happens there, but something interesting that came up. Something else, so Guyana plans an additional oil auction in 2024. So, I guess this is an annual thing, or I'm not sure how often it is, but I guess potentially on a yearly basis, they auction off areas where people can drill, and so they're looking to sell in 2024, and Exxon is going to be one of the competitors. We'll see what they actually do purchase. Next, we have they're cutting spending in Europe for this windfall tax. So apparently, what happened in Europe is Exxon was making a lot of money in that region. Uh, Europe was aware of that, and so now they want to implement this new tax that would uh, increase an expense for Exxon, which they're not a fan of that. They made a lot of money there, but if they implement that, that's more or less going to be taking away their profit. So Exxon wants to exit before this happens, and potentially that exit might um, lower the tax. We'll kind of see how this one plays out too. This happened about 3, maybe 4 weeks ago. I don't think we've received an update on this. We will continue to cycle through, but I don't recall seeing an update on this. And here's what the tax looks like. It's going to be about 33%, uh, and it could cost the company $2 billion in 2023. So we'll see if that actually happens. Because yeah, that would be a big hit. $2 billion. That's a lot. And later on, we'll share how much revenue they've made in the quarter. So that'll give us another idea. Um, Moving on to the next article. Uh, Apparently, by 2024, they're projecting that oil production could be at capacity, which means they would need to hire a lot more workers come that time, or the alternative is lower the production, which that's also mentioned in another article that we're going to cover here shortly. So we'll see how this kind of plays out over the course of this year, especially. But this is also something to keep in mind. So, whatever they produce in 2023, that might be like the limit for them unless they can find a solution to this production capacity. So we'll see how that plays out. Um, Next, we have so the labor board judged rules Exxon must repay workers for suspended 401k. So at one point, they withheld the 401k. I think that had to do with the coronavirus just to save money. So I'm not sure if it mentions how much is going to be uh, given out because of that. Um, some of the some of which Keith said were within 7.5 and 8.7 million. So would be saved by suspending. Okay, so it looks like the worst case would be about 7 to 9 million dollars. So it's nothing crazy, but of course, um, that's a hit to have all at once potentially. Next, ExxonMobil boosts fuel supply by $2 billion in the Beaumont refinery expansion. So recently they expanded along the U.S. Gulf Coast, and this is going to potentially add 250,000 barrels per day of capacity to one of the largest refineries. So that's good. Here's another quick one-liner. So 2 billion project increases capacity by 250,000 barrels per day. So that's more or less a positive thing here. Next, we have Chad approves bill to nationalize assets of ExxonMobil sold to Savannah Energy. So ExxonMobil in the country of Chad sold some of its assets, if not all of their assets, to Savannah Energy. And so the country of Chad decided to nationalize those assets, making them assets of the country as opposed to um, if Exxon had those assets, those are Exxon assets. But with the Chad's bill, they're saying even though you're here, that's still Chad's assets. So I'm not sure what the tax implications to that would be, but Exxon doesn't really want a part of that. They want their stuff to be theirs. So they're selling it to Savannah, and it looks like Chad approved that bill to nationalize the assets, and that's why Exxon wanted out of that. So um, that means lower production, at least in that one area of the world. But it seems like it was the smart move considering Exxon wants to keep things theirs, which rightfully so. So this seems like a good strategic move for them. Um, in closing for this one, it looks like Exxon closed the sale for 407 million dollars. Uh, the government challenged that, and it looks like it did go through. Not nothing more for there, but yeah. So Exxon sold out of Chad. Exxon acquires more land in the carbon storage in Gulf of Mexico. So I think this is a separate thing as opposed to what we read earlier with the what was it, the Bordeaux piece in the Texas Gulf Coast area. This is a separate one where Exxon was the higher bidder on 69 blocks of U.S. Gulf of Mexico shallow waters in a move to expand potential territory it could claim for store carbon emissions. Uh, in addition, Gulf of Mexico has generated 263.8 million in high bids, and it looks like Exxon was the highest on 69 of those plots. So congrats to them on that. Next, we have they're going to sell their stake in Canada exploration blocks. They sold it to Qatar Energy. This deal, I thought it set a price, but maybe not. Yeah, I'm not seeing a price, but um, I'm not sure of the exact details, but I think like Canada just they weren't too thrilled with the emissions that Exxon's uh, exploration efforts were causing, and so I, instead of working out a deal with Exxon and Canada, Exxon just said, "Hey, we're going to get out of this," and they found a buyer in Qatar Energy, and so Qatar Energy is to looks like buy two exploration blocks offshore of Newfoundland and Labrador. So a lot of property moves in Exxon, but nothing like major in terms of major quantity. It looks like they bought some, sold some. It seems like it's all kind of evening out. Next, they have energy stocks following OPEC's unexpected production costs. So OPEC, it looked like they wanted to reduce the barrels by more than 1 million barrels per day. I think that's like just in total, which really doesn't seem like that much, especially because we saw in that other article that Exxon just is going to start expansion to that will allow them to produce an extra 250,000 barrels a day. So if they're saying 1 million barrels per day needs to be cut from all companies like across the world, obviously Exxon's going to probably be a major contributor to that 1 million barrels. I don't know what it would be. It looks like the top three players are Exxon, Occidental, and Chevron. So even if that was the case where Exxon needs to cut back, say, 300,000 barrels, I think that kind of makes sense why they're trying to unload some of these properties. So that kind of, again, I think this is going to kind of even out for them. Nothing crazy. And the other aspect to this is, I think they even mention it in one point. I'm not seeing it, but uh, the concern with this one topic is the federal government wants to cut certain things, such as oil, because they want to bring down the price. Well, with OPEC doing this, that means because there's less oil, that means the price is going to keep going up, which kind of hurts the federal government's plans. So that's something to keep in mind. I don't think this is going to be heavily impacting Exxon, uh, and that's kind of the reason why they unloaded some of these properties is because they want a more efficient area. Hence, why they expanded in one area and unloaded in these other, what I would imagine are less profitable areas. And so, again, I don't think this is really hurting them at all. And the last article that we have is yeah, their Q1 operating profit fell 25%. So this is like the worst news. Their operating results could drop to about 9.6 billion compared to 12.8 billion in the fourth quarter. And so this kind of which article was the $2 billion? Um, yeah, so this is why they wanted out of the windfall tax because that windfall tax, $2 billion for them. Uh, Again, I realize that's not crazy for them, but if you think about if they were to be charged $2 billion in one quarter, I mean that's 20%. That's 20% of their revenue is just instantly gone because of taxes. So that makes sense that they want to push back on that. We'll see how it plays out. And I, I have to imagine the results of this. Maybe it's just because the colder months, the first quarter, maybe it's just always slow. Not sure how much of this is like serious news. It might just be a slower travel period, and that's why it's dropped. It'd be nice if they showed, is there normally a drop in the first quarter? And I imagine there's always a higher fourth quarter because you have the holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas. So that would make sense why it's so elevated. So I think this one's more not so much worrisome, only because I have to imagine their fourth quarter is, you know, higher, just its highest quarter. And so the fact that it drops on the first quarter, that's almost expected. It'd be nice to see the average, and we can maybe do that real quick. If we can load up the financials here and then look at the income statement by quarter. So revenue, what were we looking at? Because this is way higher. Operating results. Oh, this is the operating results. Okay. So this is probably, it's not even here. I guess it's the cash flows. But if we just look at the quarter, they did take a hit in the fourth quarter. Yeah, this isn't adding up to me. Um, let's look at the cash flows. I'm not sure what they're seeing. Is this operating results could drop to 9.6 billion. Operating results? I would have thought this was here. Uh, yeah, if someone can help me on this one. I'm not too sure what they're seeing on this. This is Exxon, right? Um, yeah, I'm not too sure what they're piecing together here. So yeah, if someone else is more familiar with this, I'd be very interested. But uh, again, just kind of going with the theory I was thinking of, I have to imagine their fourth quarter is very high, and so the first quarter, would be expected to be lower. Um, that's kind of even debunked here whenever I look at their quarters. Yeah, their fourth quarter actually dropped a lot, so I'm not sure. It seems to be slowing down in total revenue, so I'm not sure why it's continuing to trend up, but something to think about here. Yeah, something to think about. We will we'll look into I before I get to the technical analysis. I mean, yeah, annually they did phenomenal, so that's great. Um, yeah, we'll continue to follow this one, but let's get into the technical analysis. So we didn't change anything on this yet. This one purple line, this was just to see how it would space out over the next couple weeks because again, we originally looked at this during this week, this very small week where there really wasn't much activity. And so we wanted to see ahead because I thought I would check back on this one in about 2 weeks, but here we are over a month later, and now we're finally circling back to it. So I really should have drew this one out to this week, and but the other reason I put this in here was just so I could mark out uh, where would the stock be on these uptrend lines. So if we zoom out, this stock has been in an uptrend since uh, September of 21. It's been on a very steep uptrend, and really we could draw this back to the uh, November of 2020. It's just been in a sharp incline. It's been that way for a while, and so right now, let's just kind of assess it. So we drew in this lower green line because that seemed to be like the bottom for multiple periods. If we go back to when the uptrend started, in our opinion, you can see it does that lower trend line has acted almost as support in the uptrend channel a couple times, and most recently, it kind of stinks uh, for the fact that we didn't buy at this point because again we just I just don't have the time to follow them on a daily basis, even really a weekly basis. I wish I could, but so we missed out on this. We just didn't have good timing. Again, we saw it at this point, so that was fair. That was a fair value. It looks like if we would have bought there today, we actually would have been up a couple dollars, but we probably would have had a scare seeing it plummet the way it did so rapidly over 2 weeks. But it seems like that uptrend is still holding strong. And so that's like the positive side is, yeah, this green trend line, this buy line that I'm calling it, it's continuing to hold. Surprisingly, it came back here. I thought when we were at about 110, which was right below fair value, that blue line that we drew in here, it's above our horizontal blue line, but slightly above our uptrend blue line. And so I'm hoping this kind of makes sense here, but we drew in two sets of sell lines, fair value lines, and buy lines. And of course, we're trying to be as recent as possible. These upward trend lines, they're going to continue until they break trend. And so that's why I space them out at least until October, September. That's just to give us some like insight looking ahead, projections ahead. And so what we're going to do now is we're actually going to drag this purple line over. The reason, again, why it's there is because we were looking ahead, thinking that we were going to circle back in 2 weeks, and I just wanted to slice out where the intersection would be with the trend line and the week. And so it looks like if we would have circled back when we thought we would, it would have been right at fair value. Then again, if we would have circled back, say, the very next week, can I grab this? The very next week, around mid-March, we actually could have had a buy opportunity. But again, we just didn't time it right. And so here we are now, where it's right at that blue intersection. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to forecast ahead 1, 2, we'll say 3 weeks. And so we're going to keep our horizontal lines in there for now. So that's this line down here, marked out at $98. Our fair value line, which is marked out at 112, and then the sell / resistance line we put in at 122. We'll keep those in until it breaks that, which it, based on the uptrend, it looks like we're most likely going to break that. So if anything, I'm going to remove that top line. We'll keep the fair value line in there just for now, but because it's still on that uptrend and it seems to continually hit new higher highs, there's not really a reason to have a sell point. That's what this red line is for us, is there for us for. And yeah, we'll just keep playing this out. It seems like it's still in that uptrend, but now looking ahead, because right now, let me just update my chart and then we'll kind of make a call. So I guess for me, I'm also going to add uptrend for the past 2 years. Right, so the way I'm seeing it, because right now it's at that fair value point, and even if we look at our horizontal lines, it's very close to that fair value point still. Looking ahead, if we were to catch this one, I guess what I'll do is this week, since we're in the middle of the week, if this one were to pull back to about 102 to 98, that to me would be a great time to look into purchasing this one. If it dropped just slightly down to about 112, even right now, I think it's fair. It's definitely in a fair point. And then, of course, I'd probably wait if it was at 124 That's the higher end of the upward trend. I think you can get this one at a better price. If we look at next week, it just, those numbers that I just said, just shift them slightly up. And so what I'm going to do is flag this one for 3 weeks and ahead, because I think that's a good estimation on when I'll circle back to this. So for me, what I'm going to say my buy points are 98, which is the horizontal green line, and then right where it intersects here, which is 104. So I'll put 98 and 104 as a buy point. And then on my chart for the sell slash short column, I'm going to say resistance would be at around 126. So I'll update that to 126. And we'll just, those are the numbers that I'm watching. If it's close to 126, I'm probably going to wait to see if it pulls back, which it most likely will. If it does pull back to like 98, sort of like it did 2 or 3 weeks ago, yeah, I'm probably going to buy it. Again, it's a timing thing. So can I catch it? If I can, yeah, I'll add a share or two. But if not, I'll just keep being patient with this one. And I only say that because for the longest time, this stock, I just need to zoom out, this stock for years, like you can see this back from 2016, whoops, even before that, like you can, so back in, I'm going to say 2013, all the way up to about 2020, this stock just consistently bounced around the $61 mark. And then all of a sudden, now it wants to go crazy. I think there's going to be a time where this one is going to pull back to 61, because I don't really see why it wouldn't. As far as I know, there's still a dividend stock. I mean, I think at some point they're just going to increase their dividends or something, because I just feel like it's not going to last forever. I think there's going to be a day where it does pull back to 61. I just don't know when it is. And since it's still on an uptrend, I'm just going to play the uptrend if I can. If I can catch it at a good spot, I'll play the uptrend. But if I see this one once I see this one break that uptrend and break it in a very hard fashion, this has potential to be one of those stocks that I actually will consider shorting it. It's just not today, and not for the foreseeable future. But once this breaks that uptrend, and significantly, like, yeah, I'm not even going to think about it until something like that happens. Like right now, for me to consider even doing like a short position, if this one all of a sudden fell down to like 82 or something, like something crazy for right now, at that point, yeah, I would actually consider putting in a short order on this one. Again, nothing crazy, but just something to see how it plays out. But again, for now, I'm more into the buy and hold strategy. And this one, mainly because of the dividend play, I think I'd be interested in having this one. But that's just my thoughts. By all means, let me know what you think, especially about that 61 idea. Do you think this one will ever come back to 61 in, say, like the next 5 years? Other than that, let me know your opinions in the comments. Did you like this video? Give it a like, subscribe, and otherwise I'll see you in the next one. Bye.